What's going on, guys? This is episode 5 of the Foley and James podcast, and this time we are going to be talking about our experiences at a USA summer camp. Now, this podcast is going to be split up into a few different episodes because it's a long one, and it will also mark the very end of the current series of travel stories. However, that does not mean that the podcast has come to an end. It just means that for a few weeks we are going to be moving on to different topics and talking about some other different things that interest us and we think might be of interest to you. But don't worry, there will be more travel stories in the future. We just want to mix things up a bit. Alright, let's go. So, Foley.
Hello.
Where do you want to start with this?
I guess, the camp that we worked at was a summer sports camp in Boston. I moved to Boston for a few months, got a J1 visa, to go over in 2012, and I was looking at I'd like to have a job sorted before I went. And I was a lifeguard at the time, qualified lifeguard at the time, and they needed one. So I applied online and had a couple of kind of email interviews essentially back and forth, and all went well, and I got this job at the sports camp, that's where it all really started for me. Now, the job itself didn't start until about a month after I got to Boston, but that was all good. I was happy because it's like, oh great, I've got 5-6 weeks of work sorted at least for when I'm over there.
How did you find that job? Did you just Google jobs in the US or something?
There's a site that I use, it's called Indeed, and you can narrow it down and search stuff essentially, and it came up there. I applied for it and got it, which is great. So I went over, started work, and met the director, the office manager, stuff like that, and it was great.
Nice. And so did you ever think of doing anything through Camp America or anything like that, or why did you not do it that way? That would seem like the most I mean, at least from my point of view, that's the only way I'd heard of going about getting a summer camp anyway before I'd done one.
Yeah, it had popped up, I guess, but it was the one that had popped up for me was to do with coaching. Football coaching, soccer coaching, and I hadn't really heard about working at Camp America other than these coaching camps, really. So we only got told about it in our second year, I think it was, at university. And it's like, oh, you go, you do this coaching assessment, and then they'll put you up or whatever. And that had actually completely gone out of my head, really, before I moved to Boston that year. So this just came up online. It was for, as I said, 5 or 6 weeks. And I didn't know at the time how long I was going to be in Boston. I knew the maximum length of time, but I didn't know how long I'd be able to afford to keep living there.
Right. Just before, because obviously it feels like I'm interviewing you at the moment, but
that's true.
It's just because we should just explain. It's just because you've done. How many have you done of these camps actually?
3. 3 of these. This particular one, and then 3 in Boston. Sorry, of this particular one, and 1 of the same camp down in Orlando.
Right, and but so you went back to the same the same sort of owner of the camps each summer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the same owners. The office staff, the staff would rotate anyways. It's a lot of college people are heading into college looking for just coaching jobs. And in America, I find that, and in Canada where I am now, the summer coaching jobs, for the camps, they're huge. They're great for college students. Of course they are, because it's for the summer and it's money and it's doing something that you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I did 2012, went back in 2013, took a break in 2014 because there's a few things going on, including a very small minor trip to Malta. And 2015 is obviously when we were both traveling, and I told you, it's I'll probably be able to get you work in this camp in Boston. And I think you kind of jumped at it just because, it's great, it's an experience.
Absolutely. I mean, it just gave me an end point to aim for, really, with the travel. As we've obviously explained in previous episodes, neither of us really had a route in mind. You knew you were going to this camp, so that at least gave you a finishing point. But I didn't even have that, you know, and just when that was offered on the table, it just seemed like a really cool option. So I was, very keen to take that. But like, we should say at this point that sports camps aren't the only option here. You know, it's...
No, of course not.
What other things are there? There's things like, I think there's like, the one we went to was a multiple... like multi-sports camps, so lots of different sports going on, but there are obviously ones for actual specific sports, but I think there's like music and religious camps.
Oh, of course, of course. Another friend of mine worked at a Jewish camp. You know,
Jewish camp. Okay.
Yeah, like it wasn't overly religious or anything like that. It was just known as a Jewish camp. You know,
okay.
But I know another friend.
Do you know any like what that? Like, okay, so if it's not overly religious, what does that involve then? Why is it?
Well, that's what I was just about to say. So another friend of mine who I met through this sports camp in Boston, she worked at a different camp previously, and what they do, and it's actually one similar that they're going to be running on the campus where I'm based now over the summer for a couple of weeks. So it's kind of just a summer camp, whereas that you can, this one especially, the kids would stay overnight. You know, so to be on a high school campus or to be on a college campus, you know, where there's obviously beds and dorms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you'd have your breakfast, and then there'd be just different activities throughout the day. And if you were near a lake, maybe there'd be a lake activity every day. It could be kayaking up and down a river, hiking, stuff like that. And there probably would be sport included in those. But unlike the sports camp, it wouldn't be coaching as much as... hey guys, let's play this sport for an hour. You know, let's play dodgeball.
Right, it's more like just an activity rather than rather than a reason you're there, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. And like, so, yeah. I mean, the reason I brought that up is I just wanted to try and stress that if you're not into sports or whatever, you know, there are camps for everyone. As far as, well, kids obviously can go to any sort of camp, but if you're listening to this, you're probably around our age, and so for going and working at one, there is stuff for all tastes, I believe. You know, it's just, I mean, all I know is what I've seen on TV and films and stuff with kids going to camp. I don't think they're all like American Pie band camp, but you never know. So let's start talking about our actual the summer we spent together at Boston. Have you got any particular, I don't know, like interesting or funny stories from your previous ones?
No, a lot of them would probably roll into this one, or else I'll think of them. You know, when something comes up, it's like, oh, that reminds me, blah blah blah. But one thing I'd say as well is that even at this camp. You know, we mentioned all the other types of camps. There's a lot of language camps around the place as well.
Language,
you know, so even here at this campus where I'm based, they do an ESL camp, an English as a second language, where internationals, you know, teenagers come over and attempt to learn English for a few weeks.
That's right, because I think there was one on the same campus that shared the campus with us. We got all the sports facilities, but they got all the classrooms, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Was that right? But that's good, because so at our camp, you mentioned so the kids come over for international. Like, part of our camp was massively international. I mean, I didn't expect it at all. I didn't know what to expect, but I just assumed it would be like kids from the Massachusetts area. But we had campers from, I think, every continent, right? I believe we had obviously North America, we had South America, we had Africa, Australasia, Asia.
Yeah, Europe. Probably. I don't think we had too many Antarcticans.
I don't think there were too many of them, but I believe we got people from everywhere, literally everywhere. It was really cool, and likewise with the staff, right? So obviously me and you over from Europe, but there were tons of South and Central Americans. There was loads of not loads of, but there was a Portuguese guy.
Yeah,
there was.
No, there was as you said, staff from all over the place, and some of them might have been. I say some of them. A lot of them would have been actually studying in the US.
That's right.
You know,
That's right. So they're international students, and they don't go home over the summer, so they stay there and work. Right. That's right. Like, I didn't appreciate that though. I didn't appreciate that at all. I didn't know what to expect. It was my first time, and just. I mean, the people we worked with, I don't know about you, but like, they were the best people that I've met. Like, it was there's just so much fun, and it was just really cool just to be hanging around with such interesting and laid back, funny, just good people, you know.
No, I completely agree, and that's one thing I do want to say before we continue. I won't be naming any names personally, just in case. And it's not for legal reasons or anything. It's in case I forget someone and leave someone out that I really enjoy spending time with, and I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, so not a problem. Do you know if it's like usual that camps are so international like that? I mean, but from both the workers and the campus side of things.
Well, that's the only camp that I've worked at, really.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell. I worked at a language camp before, so that was going to be international.
Sure.
I think there was French, Spanish, and Italian students at that. And I just helped out in the afternoons when they were doing sports, which was nice. So, I honestly don't know. I guess the overnight camps would be, because you'd have kids coming in from everywhere and anywhere, whereas if it's just a day camp, which there was some day campers at this summer camp, they get dropped off at 8 o'clock in the morning, picked up again at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd be the local ones.
It was a weird mix. Yeah, it was a very good mix, but it was like, as you say, it had overnight campers, we had day campers, but there were also the overnight campers were also mixed up. So there was some that would be there from Monday to Friday, and then go home for the weekend, and then come back the next week, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
There was some that would stay the full whack. Obviously, this was mostly the international students who couldn't go home at the weekend. They would stay over the weekends, and then there would be some who would literally just come for 1 week, or there would be local kids who would also stay for the weekend, because we'd have cool excursions. We'll talk about that in a bit. But over the weekend, and they'd come for that, and it was a nice little mixture. But I mean, how many was it? About 600 campers were overnight campers when we were there.
No, there wasn't that many overnight. I think that
was it
the busiest week there was between maybe 550 and 600 total. That's including day students.
Okay, that was it.
Day campers.
Okay.
Sorry.
And how many of those were overnighters on the busiest week?
Between half and 2/3, I guess. Probably about 2/3.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is still a hell of a lot of kids when you think about it. But it's
hey, it was, man. I mean, because they obviously outnumbered us
massively,
by quite a lot, and it was always like a challenge sometimes with things like getting them up in the morning, or making sure they actually go to, or have their lights out and are in their beds when they're supposed to be, and all this sort of stuff. That was often challenging. Particularly, one that sticks out to me was when I think it was the Women's Football World Cup, and Mexico were playing the US, and there were obviously Americans there, but there were also Mexicans.
Yeah.
There. Do you remember that? And we had.
I don't think it was the. I don't even think it was the Women's World Cup. I have a funny feeling it was the Gold Cup.
Was it the Gold Cup?
I think so. Now again, I could be wrong on that, but because I'm nearly sure it was, because USA were playing Honduras, that kind of thing.
Right.
Mexico playing Cuba, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, I've mixed that up, because the Women's World Cup was on at the same time, but I think
it was. That was on a little bit earlier, I think.
Right. But there was that one night, where these guys, we put them all to bed, I think, and then the Mexicans snuck out and went back to the room where the TV was, and we found them, and they just didn't want to go to bed, they just refused. I mean, the problem is, so the kids are all aged 8 to 18, right? And so you've got various levels of, say, defiance, right? So you've got some kids who are really young and still, they'll do everything you tell them to do, because they'll bow down to authority type thing, and then there are some kids who realise that actually you can't do anything, we can't do anything, and so they'll just say, they'll just won't do what you want. The Mexicans weren't like that. They were actually just nice guys who wanted to watch their team play.
Yeah.
And I think we let them off, didn't we? We let them watch the first half, I think.
We definitely let them watch the first half, and then I don't know what game it was, but it might have been kind of one of the bigger wins for Mexico if they had a big. Yeah, it might have been the first game, maybe they beat Cuba 6-0 or something.
Okay. I thought. Okay. I was actually just gonna say the opposite. I think it was this. I mean, it might have happened on a couple of occasions. I thought it was a game where it went to penalties, because we said, okay, you can watch the game, but as soon as the final whistle goes, you go to bed. and then it was going to go to extra time and penalties, which of course is an extra 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah, at
And,
least. That could have been the case, because like there was I know Panama. It could have been the Panama-Mexico game, maybe in the semi-final, where Mexico only won 2-1.
Yeah,
That might have been the one.
maybe. But it was just funny because, like, obviously the problem with that, I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal. I'll just let the kids stay up and watch it. But like, this is meant to be we're responsible for these kids, you know, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we all know where they are, and if we're chasing people who are out of bed when they should be sleeping and stuff, then there are other ones that might be problems, whatever happens, and all that sort of stuff. And it's just, there's a lot of pressure on us to make sure the kids go to bed at the same time, so that's why it seemed like a big deal. Like, camp life is, I mean, can we talk about this for a sec? Like,
oh, definitely. Well, it's the kind of thing where you like, I know where you're coming from. It's the kind of thing it's like, well, if some kids see, oh, why are they allowed up to watch that game? I'm just going to go and meet this girl I met at tennis earlier. You know, like, they see it as almost the same kind of thing.
Absolutely. As soon as one person gets some sort of, let's say, special treatment, then they all think they can get some sort of exception. But no, what I was actually going to say is, like, to the listener who hasn't done a camp like this before, that seems like such a small thing. Like, yeah, just let the kid watch like half an hour of football or whatever. Yeah. But like, camp life is so insular. Like, it's you don't feel, you forget that you forget the bigger picture of the real world. You know, your camp life is everything, and so the rules are the rules, and you just follow them. And if there are kids not following the rules, you kind of feel like under pressure to do it. It's a strange dynamic, just because everything you do for 6 weeks that we were working there is, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, is all about them, and you're on this same campus, you're with them the whole time, 24 hours a day. If you're taking them off campus, you're responsible for them getting on buses, going to supermarkets, going to theatres, going on boats, whatever it is. And it's really I don't know, it feels like it's like a bubble, you know, the sort of,
it is massively. It's no matter if you're on campus, off campus, if they're in your sport or not, if like you're responsible for every single one of them. You as an individual has to make sure that every single one of them is safe and taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. And it, like, even so for me, I was a counsellor. We'll talk about the different types of jobs there were. I was a counsellor, and that's the sort of bog standard job that most people will do at any camp. This is like universal across all camps, I believe, and that's the job where it's the guy who gets the kids up in the morning, takes them to breakfast, and in the case of our camp, we'll take them to their sport, and then meet them for lunch, take them to lunch, take them back to their sport, meet them for dinner, go to dinner, do an evening activity, and then put them to bed. You know, like, it's... And so for the counsellor, the only time in the day where you're not with the kids is when they're doing their sport in the morning and in the afternoon. But the counsellors don't then just have to do nothing. You know, we're still... like, for example, I was often whizzing around all these sports on a golf buggy with loads of water, because it was, 30-odd degrees outside, and there's lots of, like... I mean, what sports were there? Can you remember? What were they all?
Yeah, so soccer ran every week, basketball ran every week, tennis ran every week, and then there was a few sports that didn't run every week, so like lacrosse. I think boys lacrosse did run every week, girls lacrosse didn't. Golf ran every week. Then there would have been like baseball,
American football.
Yeah, American football for a couple of weeks, baseball for a few weeks, softball for probably 3 or 4 weeks. Definitely missing out 1 or 2.
Did you mention basketball?
Mention basketball, yeah.
Volleyball
ran for a few weeks, and I know down in Orlando then as well. It was only a 1 week camp, but we'd ultimate frisbee.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
nice. Because one of the guys at Boston, he was one of the counsellors. He was an ultimate frisbee player, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He plays in college, or played in, if he's out of college now.
That's such a cool sport, man. That's just brand new over in England, really. I think it's such a cool sport. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's getting big, which is great.
Mm.
And I think there's probably 1 or 2 more, and again, I'm going to be like, hated by people. It's like I
Discriminated.
coached that.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But the biggest two would have been soccer and basketball.
Yes, they were. They had the most kids.
And they ran for all 6 weeks.
They ran for all 6 weeks, and the lion's share of the campers were at those two sports.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I was going around, I was basically the water boy, if you think of Adam Sandler with his H2O. I was going around with all these coolers full of water and I had to fill up, but like all these different sports that spread out across the whole campus, like takes up a lot of time. And you were coaching, right? What did that entail?
Yeah, well, so for the first summer I was a lifeguard and a camp counsellor. Now the lifeguard in itself was only kind of an hour of the day, throughout the week, not on Sundays, though, but throughout the week. And then the second year again, I was the same thing, but because it was my second year there, I started offering to do a few more things because I knew how, so I'd help in the office a little bit. And stuff like that. And then my third year there, which is 2015, I was a coach, the goalkeeping coach for the soccer program, and I was a counsellor, and I helped in the office a lot, in my opinion, anyway. Or at least I was there a lot.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of people who were there would agree with you on that one, mate. I mean, you did a lot of work. So let's put this in perspective. Anyway, like. It wasn't unusual to work 18 hours a day, right? Sort of get up at 6
much, yeah.
And go to bed.
A lot of my mornings, a lot of my mornings, especially towards the last couple of weeks, I would wake up the golfers. So the golfers had to wake up earlier than everyone else because they were going off campus, and they just went to breakfast earlier than everyone else. They met earlier and they headed off. Even it might only be 20 minutes earlier than everyone else, but they did that. So I woke up the golfers at like 6:15, meaning I had to be up at 6. And then go to breakfast, and then I'd go to the office while everyone else is going to breakfast. And even if it was just answering phones to parents, I'd sit there and do that. And then, coaching, lunch, coaching, dinner. And then a lot of the time, depending on the evening activity, which again we will go into, as you said, I might go on that, or else I'll go back to the office. I can help supervise the dorms. And with the office stuff, so the kids are in bed at 11 o'clock at the latest. We often had a staff meeting at 11 o'clock, and then I might go to the office again for an hour or two. And I wasn't the only one, don't get me wrong. There was a core group of, 4?
Yeah, it was about 4 of you.
3, 4, 5 of us at most that would do that regularly.
You guys, man, like, so because didn't you I think you weren't originally not supposed to, but you weren't originally signed on to go into the office, but you saw how overworked these guys were, and because you were sort of the veteran in this camp, you stepped in and just gave them a hand, right? I believe that's how it was.
Pretty much. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not painting myself as a hero or anything.
No.
But it just became something like, right, well, can I even answer the phone for an hour every now and then? I'd pop in, and then I'd be there more and more, so I'd get more and more kind of jobs to do, and it just I like to think I made everyone's life a little bit easier.
Yeah,
there's two off the top of my head, people who, again, I won't name names, but hopefully they know who they are, we had such a, fun isn't the right word because it was hard work, but we made it a more fun atmosphere than it could have been.
Absolutely. I know exactly who you mean, and I bought them both, like, I treated them both to Dunkin' Donuts at one point.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I saw how stressed out they were, because they were basically managing this thing. So the owner of the camp, the overall owner of the camp, as you mentioned, he has camps scattered around the States, and in Orlando and in Boston and other places as well, I believe. And so he wasn't always around because he was doing other things with his multiple camps. And so these core few people in the office that were managing this whole camp were just doing these ridiculous hours. And in fact, it was a little bit bigger, the group, to begin with, because wasn't there one of them who was there for a while, but then she didn't stay for the last few weeks or something, and then isn't that why you stepped in, because they lost a team member?
Maybe I know who you're on about. Yeah, that was something part of the reason was something that came up at home. I think I could be wrong. Again, another reason why I'm not naming names, especially for something like that. But yeah, no, and I said two, but I do think I mean three. There's another person in there as well that I'd definitely like to include in the fact that I've had a core group of four of us, shall we say? But yeah, that was definitely similar to that. And then there's this um, other girl who was there maybe for the first week to show people how to do certain things, and then she had to leave because she had other commitments.
Mm.
So yeah, it was a case of, oh, we look great for, because the first week and the last weeks we had the least amount of campers, the first week especially. So it's like, oh, we've good perfect number of staff in the office for this kind of for this numbers of camp, and then you lose one or two in the office and you start getting more and more campers.
Yeah.
So that's where the kind of imbalance came about as well.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of nice. I mean, it works out nicely that there's fewer campers in the first week because for the new guys like me, it's like a nice sort of introduction to
Big
what
time.
what it's going to be and everything, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, big time,
Um,
big time. And in fairness, like you took to it like a duck to water. You know, you're pretty open minded anyway, and you don't mind doing hard work, so it wasn't the biggest issue for you. And then
yeah,
when other buildings opened up, as we got more and more campers, it was a case like, who wants to go there? And you're like, yeah, well, why not? Why wouldn't I? Something
yeah.
a little
So
bit new.
let's describe that. So as we said, like the camp is spread out across this college campus, and because there are hundreds of overnight campers there, that means we need hundreds of rooms. All right, it's usually two to a room, but that still adds up, right? And so this was all in across different buildings because of the statistics and everything and logistics of it all. And so we had like one counselor or one sort of worker who was the head of the building, say, and they were responsible for keeping the whole thing or the staff organised within the building, and those staff were obviously trying to keep the kids in order, and yeah, like I mean, I would say I worked my way up, but it was also because there were a couple of people, as you say, not dropped out, but weren't signed up for the full 6 weeks to start with, and for various
True.
reasons had to leave. And so I ended up heading one of the buildings for the last couple of weeks. I believe you were the head of one of the buildings for most of the time, right?
That it was open, yeah, yeah.
That it was open.
But I you see the thing is as well, I'd done that before,
Yeah,
so
of
that
course, of
helped
course,
obviously.
of course. Yeah, yeah.
But because I was in the office so much more than I had been previously, it was good knowing that I had certain people there, like yourself, that I could trust. You know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, so you also, first of all, thank you for the nice things you said about me there. Like, I mean, I remember when you first told me about the camp when we were I don't know if we were in Brazil or where we were when you mentioned it, but you said, it's fun, but it's hard work. Like, it's really hard work, and I, I'm not, and I wasn't afraid of hard work. I will get stuck in, but I tell you now, I massively underestimated how exhausting it'd be.
Yeah, yeah. The heat didn't help. Like as you said, it was 30 plus
True.
degrees every day. That's Celsius for any of those listening in the USA. Sorry, both of you listening in the USA. Generous thinking we have two. No.
No, yeah, I mean, of course, but it was just the workload was
Yeah.
loads. But that's what we're there for. We're not there to have a holiday. We were there to let the kids have a good time as best
Exactly,
we could.
and that's the thing. Like it's 6 weeks of the year, well, six and a bit, because we arrived a few days early, obviously. But it's 6 weeks of the year, 7 days a week. In
Yes.
fairness, you don't get a break really.
Mhm.
But it's yeah, like it's fun. Especially as you mentioned it earlier, the people really make it, and
Absolutely.
not just the people that you work with, who are 80% of them are phenomenal people,
Mhm.
phenomenal. 10% of them absolutely fine, and then there's 10% are just like, yeah, I don't need to talk to you ever again. Yeah, so guys, we're going to leave it there for now. That covers what kind of in general what summer camps are all about. Um, we're going to move on to what it takes to work in one, and move on to like what some of the hours are and individual jobs and stuff. But for now, that's us. We're both on Facebook, myself and James. We're both on Twitter. James is at tweetbelsey, Belsey. I'm at OCR Cove. That's also my Instagram handle, and my Snapchat is Crazy Axel. So yeah, guys, we hope to hear you soon. Please subscribe,
share, comment, like, everything, the usual social media stuff. Please do it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.